Viren's death is perfect. The Dragon Prince's 6th season recently dropped on Netflix, and it was its best season yet. I honestly wasn't sure what part to talk about first, because literally everything that happened this season was actually insane, but I figured Viren was a good place to start, because, come on, he's Viren. He was one of this channel's first profile pictures. In The Dragon Prince Season 6, Viren sacrificed himself to save Katolis, and in today's video, we're going to talk about why it was the perfect death. Because it was a sacrifice. Viren's death was a sacrifice, and sacrifices are a huge theme in his arc. When we first meet Viren, he is introduced as the High Mage of Katolis, and King Harrow's best friend. He is a regular user of dark magic, someone who sees no problem with creative solutions, and just cares about getting done what needs to be done, no matter the cost. He begins as a sort of anti-hero in this way, someone who wants the right things, such as saving King Harrow's life, but is willing to do evil in order for good. Because he has a greater good mindset, Viren is also apathetic to the death of individuals. He is fine with Soren dying if it means Claudia completing the mission to retrieve the Dragon Prince, although this is partially because of his own issues with Soren, which we'll get into in a bit. And this means that Viren himself is willing to die for his own cause. Viren has always been self-sacrificial. The first inciting incident for his character is when he is humbled and offers himself as a sacrifice for Harrow, wanting to swap their bodies so Viren is assassinated in the king's place. Harrow rejects his dark magic, however, and Viren grows colder than he already was. As his mission changes, he continues to make sacrifice after sacrifice, choosing one thing in his life over another, and he loses more and more of what he once cared about and loses more and more of himself. After a life of sacrificing the wrong things, it's fitting that Viren's death would come full circle to be a sacrifice of himself. He has given up so much, pushing away his wife, Lisa, his best friend Harrow, his children, Soren and Claudia, making more and more evil choices as his sacrifices become greater. But finally, in a death that references his offer to sacrifice himself for Harrow in the very beginning of the show, Viren uses his own heart as a resource for a dark magic spell to save Katolis, sacrificing himself. For Katolis. The reason for Viren sacrificing himself being to save Katolis is another fantastic touch to make his death meaningful. Viren never cared about the people of Katolis. He saw them as tools to be used, controlled, or discarded. In Season 3, he was Katolis' tyrant king, abusing the people and leading them into war. Also another note that when he used the fire spell last, it was to make the people of his army immune to fire, and since we now know that the spell requires a human heart, he literally had to kill one of his people to make the rest immune to fire. They were tools and resources to him and nothing more. So for Viren to be put into this humbling position of dying for the very people he used to think were so below him, the common people he cared so little about, is just poetic. For Soren. Another hard-hitting aspect of Viren's death is that he did it not only for Katolis, but most of all for Soren. Viren was a terrible father to Soren. He first used dark magic to save Soren's life. Back when he was a loving father, he would do anything for his son. But after the horrors he committed to complete the spell, his wife Lisa left him, and Viren blamed Soren for the rest of his life. He was cold and cruel to him, using him, insulting him, beating him down at every chance he got. Despite formerly being willing to give up everything to save his son, the older Soren got, the less Viren cared if he lived or died. After Viren began a proper redemption arc in Season 5, Soren was one of the biggest things he had to deal with. Spending time with his new son-in-law Terry definitely helped him learn how not to be such a toxic father, and he spent a lot of time reflecting on his relationship with Claudia. He recognized what a terrible father he was to her, and in Season 6, he finally faced what a terrible father he had been to Soren. He tried to apologize, but Soren was not in the place to hear from him. When Katolis was attacked by Sol Regum, Soren turned to Viren and asked him to use dark magic to save the kingdom, which I might add is also significant for Soren's character as someone who does not like dark magic. Viren has given up dark magic and refuses, but Soren insists that he does. Viren finally confesses the cost of the spell, a human heart, to which Soren responds by offering his heart, which is a big deal because multiple times throughout the season the show has made a point of mentioning that Soren has a good heart. This creates the symbolism of Soren representing goodness, innocence. So Viren is given the choice of using his son, the one he used dark magic to save, the one that is good and kind, the one he's tried to become a better person for, the one that represents everything he's sacrificed before. Instead, Viren uses his own heart, and he sacrifices himself for Soren. Soren lives, and Katolis lives, and Viren dies. And for himself. Viren's death not only is for Katolis and Soren, but also means so much for himself. It is not a redemption in death, where a villain becomes a hero one last time before dying to protect others, because Viren did not become a hero, he became a servant. Let's talk about his last line. This line, "I am a servant," completely wraps up Viren's arc. There are so many layers to this one clip of dialogue, so let's get into it. Firstly, "I am a servant" is a direct callback to the scene between Harrow and Viren in Season 1, where Viren tries offering to die in the king's place. Using this as mirroring just ties the beginning and the ends of Viren's character back together.
On your knees. You are a servant of the kingdom of Katolis. You are a servant. I am a servant. I am a servant.
This confession of being a servant means so much. He recognizes his status. Viren is not a king, not a conqueror, not a hero, not a villain. He is a servant. He was a servant to his own use of black magic for a long time, and then a servant to Erebos, a servant to evil, a servant to death. And finally, just once, he chooses to be a servant for good. The servant that bows down for Katolis and takes the final blow to save it. He was never the master like he wanted to be, but now he's the servant he needed to be. And if I may get over-analytical, which I can because this is my analysis video, this death also means so much for Viren since Sol Regum is being controlled by Erebos. Because Sol Regum is under Erebos' influence, Viren is symbolically fighting directly against him, winning against the person who had him under his thumb for so long. In his death, Viren finally took control back of his life. And that's that. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments how you felt about Viren's death and Dragon Prince Season 6 in general, and subscribe for more upcoming Dragon Prince content. I think my next video will probably be about Rayla, so that's exciting. And as some final thoughts, I just hope if they ever give Viren a proper funeral, that they give him some new clothes. Because he has been wearing the same hospital gown since Season 3, and he has died in it 3 times, and has been wearing it for over 2 years. Thank you for watching.